Hello, YouTube divers. This is WaterDive 122, and I want to welcome you all back to another episode of Magic Metal Mondays. Today, we are going to be continuing to rank the 13 studio albums from LA's very own Great White, one of the most underrated and one of the most underappreciated bands to come out of the 1980s hard rock and heavy metal scene. Last time we saw each other, we ranked albums 13 through 8. And now we are going to tackle the rest of the discography and go from number 7 to number 1. And I will say that all of these records that we'll be talking about in this video are all great records at the very least. This was very hard for me to rank, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get into the ranking. So, coming in at number 7, we've got the 1999 album Can't Get There From Here. So this is the only record where the band went full-on southern rock. Like, if you like bands like Lynyrd Skynyrd and a lot of those early 70s, late 60s southern rock bands, then you'll have a lot of fun with this record. There are a lot of great southern rock and just like hard psychedelic rock jams on here. Psychedelic Hurricane's a fun one. Hey Mister is a great song. Rolling Stone is the lead single and the opening track on this record, and while it is corny, it is very, very fun. In the Tradition is a nice little ballad. Wouldn't Jesus is a lot of fun. Ain't No Shame is a great song, and the Freedom Song, another banger on the record. And even the tracks I didn't mention, they're all great. This is a great album. Definitely go listen to it if you haven't already. A very underrated album in their discography, if you ask me. So now, number 6, we're going to be talking about the self-titled debut album from 1984. This album is a lot of fun. It's very raw, it's very heavy, it's very rambunctious and rebellious. This gives me a lot of vibes from Motley Crue's first album, Too Fast for Love, and Def Leppard's first album, On Through the Night, and Ratt's first album, Out of the Cellar. Like, all three of these records are very raw, rambunctious, hungry sounding, and rebellious. And with the debut album from Great White, it's absolutely no exception. There are a lot of banging songs on here. You have Hold On, which is a very atmospheric cut. Stick It, Out of the Night, Substitute, which is a very catchy song, especially in the chorus. On Your Knees, and Bad Boys, a very anthemic song. And then my favorite song on here has to go to the absolutely killer song, Street Killer. Love this song. Probably one of my favorite songs the band has ever made. Honestly, I love this song a lot. So I mean, yeah, the self-titled debut album is a great album. Definitely a great start to a career, if you ask me. Especially in this time period. I feel like with this record, Great White were just trying to make a name for themselves. And that would eventually lead to a really, really impressive run of records to follow. So with that said, the self-titled debut album comes in here at number 6. Alright, coming in at number 5, we've got a little bit of a surprise pick here. We got the 1996 album, Let It Rock. So, as the title of this album suggests, this is a very rocking album. The previous album, Sail Away, was anything but rocking. It was very, well, I mean, I already talked about it in the previous part, so, I mean, you can get more of my thoughts on Sail Away there. But Let It Rock was just such a huge step up from Sail Away, honestly. There's a lot more variety on this record compared to Sail Away. My World, in particular, sounds very grungy and very, like, bad to the bone. Basically sounds a lot like the music that was dominating the radio and charts at the time. Ain't No Ain't No Way to Treat a Lady is a very fun song. Miles Away is a very nice ballad. Lives in Chains is one of the band's most underrated songs, in my opinion. Pain Overload is a great tune. Man in the Sky is great. And then my favorite song on the record has to go to the country-esque ballad Easy. You want to talk about great vocal performances? This song's got you covered. This song has probably one of Jack Russell's most soulful and most expressive vocal performances of his entire career. Honestly, it's just so pleasant. I love his voice. What more do you want me to say? Easy, great song, great album. Let It Rock, it rocks. Comes in here at number 5. Number 4, we've got the 1991 album Hooked. So this album came out just when grunge was starting to rise up from the ashes, so to speak. But the one thing that I can admire Great White for doing is not abandoning their roots and falling into that grunge trap. They weren't really hungry for big time mainstream success, because they were right off the heels of their most successful album to date. And they went in the studio and they just made a record that just basically resonates within the Great White fandom. And while there are a lot of great bluesy rock songs like Call It Rock and Roll, Desert Moon, South Bay Cities, and the original Queen of Sheba, there's also a lot of more atmospheric cuts on here. Afterglow's a great song, Cold Hearted Lovin's great, and Can't Shake It is probably my favorite song on the record. The whole album just combines bluesy rock, the hard blues rock that they got famous for, along with more atmosphere. Like, this record has more atmosphere to it. It's very beautiful. It's a beautiful record. What more do you want me to say? Hooked is a great album. Definitely go listen to it if you haven't already. So with that said, Hooked comes in here number 4. Now, these last 3 records are, I would probably say these are the 3 records that most Great White fans would have at the top of their lists. And all 3 of these records are completely flawless. Ranking these 3 records was very, very, very hard to do. But we're going to do it anyway. So, coming in at number 3, we've got the 1989 album Twice Shy. This is their most successful record to date, and there is pretty much hit after hit after hit on this album. You have Move It, Missed a Bone, Baby on Fire, Highway Nights, Heart the Hunter, She Only, The Angel Song, and of course, the ever iconic radio, and of course the ever iconic Ian Hunter cover of Once Bitten, Twice Shy. I mean, what more do you want me to say about this record? There are hits all over this record. Even the tracks I didn't mention, they could have all easily have been hits. Like, wow. You don't see a lot of bands make records like this anymore, where the album is just so completely flawless, where literally every single song on the album could be a hit. And low-key, I would not be surprised if every single song on this album was a hit. I mean, I know, like, Once Bitten, Twice Shy is obviously going to get the love, and for good reason. It's a good song. It's iconic as hell. It's iconic as heck, rather. It's a great song. It's a very, very good song. The whole album is just flawless from start to finish. I love this album. It's great. Very, very good. So with that said, Twice Shy comes in here at number 3. Number 2, we've got the 1986 album Shot in the Dark. Now, this is, in terms of production, this is Great White's best album. None of their records sound as big and as bold and as frickin' bad to the bone as Shot in the Dark. And it's just amazing from start to finish. The vocals, the guitars, the drums, the keyboards, everything about this album just screams the 1980s. And I love it. I love this kind of sound within a record. There are so many great songs on this record. What Do You Do? Waiting for Love, Face the Day, Runaway, the title track, Shot in the Dark, and my favorite song on the record has to go to the opening track, She Shakes Me. It's really a hard decision for me to choose either between She Shakes Me and the title track as being my favorite songs from the record, but for right now, it's She Shakes Me, simply because it is probably one of the biggest earworm songs you will ever hear. Like, once you listen to it, you can't get it out of your head. Like, the chorus melody and the riffs, it's just forever jammed into your brain. It's so freaking good. But Shot in the Dark probably has the best atmosphere. The title track has probably the best atmosphere on the record. And arguably Jack Russell's best vocal performance on the record. It's really up for debate if you ask me. But yeah, the whole album just is freaking amazing. I love it. I love it. Shot in the Dark, wonderful album. Okay, so now we have finally reached it. Number 1, Process of Elimination. If you're a Great White fan, then you know what album is left. And number 1, we've got the 1987 album, Once Bitten. So, this was really hard for me to do. Shot in the Dark had the best production and the best performances from the band. But Once Bitten is their most entertaining record. Like, out of all the records that we've talked about in this ranking, Once Bitten was the album that I had the most fun listening to. While it may not be as professionally made as Shot in the Dark, Once Bitten gets the number 1 spot just simply because of how fun it is. Not to say that Shot in the Dark wasn't a fun record. I feel like Shot in the Dark was a more serious record in terms of like the overall music quality and stuff, but with Once Bitten, I get a lot of fun and I get a lot of smiles and I get a lot of laughs across this record. Not because any of the lyrics are funny or anything, but just laughter because I'm having a good time. But like with the previous 2 records I've talked about, this album, Once Bitten, is flawless. It's flawless. It's got Rock Me, On the Edge, Mistreater, Save Your Life, a classic song from the band. Rock Me is also a classic song from the band as well. Never Change Heart, All Over Now, and my favorite song from Great White in general, the opening track, and another classic song from the band, Lady Red Light. The whole album, while it may not be as hit-friendly as Twice Shy is, and while it may not be as professionally made and performed as Shot in the Dark, I feel like it's the best marriage between both of those records. Both Twice Shy and Shot in the Dark. It's got great performances. It's from everyone in the band. The production's great. And there are a lot of classic songs on this record. I already mentioned Rock Me and Save Your Love and Lady Red Light. All those songs are staples in the Great White discography and are fan favorites from this band. And Lady Red Light in particular, I already said it's my favorite song from Great White in general. And I wish it was a song they played live more frequently, but to each their own, I suppose. But yeah, Once Bitten, it's gonna be really hard going forward on what's gonna be my favorite album from the band, whether it's Shot in the Dark or Once Bitten. Heck, even Twice Shy could probably sneak in there at some point. But for right now, Once Bitten takes the number 1 spot. I love this record. Just a wonderful record from start to finish. Alright, so now with that said, that concludes this video and this ranking. So thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is WaterDive122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thank you for watching.